Charlie stretches his towards the hair on his chest glinting, I watch droplets of sweat run down his and I involuntarily lick my lips.
Yeah. All right.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Bim.
How are you doing?
I am fantastic.
I am fandavidosi. I've never been better, I don't think.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for this episode.
I'm actually sweating. My armpits are very damp.
Wow. Like I never imagined this day would happen.
Are you wiping a tear from your eye?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure. I'm so excited about this episode because we obviously had wanted this from literally the first season.
Yes.
Because in fact, we did an episode about Charlie Cox, which was wrapped up in the Great British Bake Off about British men that we fancied.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like only right that at this point, like so close to our first anniversary, that Charlie himself graced us.
Yes.
With his presence.
Yes.
In this hair studio.
Beautiful, hairy-chested presence.
Oh, my God. He's such a sweet man.
He is.
I can't believe how nice he was. He gave us more time than we had asked for.
Yep.
And he was gracious about it.
Yes.
And he was just lovely. He answered all our questions. He seemed like he was thinking about the answers.
Yeah.
I think my crush is very real now.
He was just so, I don't know, like just nice and thoughtful. Like you could tell he was really thinking about his answers and that he wanted to answer us thoroughly.
Yes.
Yeah.
A cinnamon roll of a man who also, and this is very important, understood and appreciated our love for Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. You hear it, you will hear it in the interview. But when he said that, I looked at him and I was like, right, yeah, that's the stuff. That is the stuff right there. I was I was very pleased by that. He seems like just a lovely, self-aware, very kind. He was very gracious. Yes. And he did something which I urge all famous people to do more of. Mm-hmm. As we were leaving, he held the door open and then he held it until everyone had walked through.
Yes.
And he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But he did.
He did.
If a whole Charlie Cox can do it, you fuckers, you can do it too. It's a very small thing. But I saw him hold the door and I was like, is it, Charlie? Is it? What a good man. I know the bar is very low, but sometimes you have to appreciate just genuine niceness when you encounter it. And that's just one good thing. The rest of it is all in the interview. Nicole got to ask some questions.
Yes.
About very specific characters and moments.
Yes. And, because he was so sweet, I didn't give him the full Nicole.
No.
But,
he didn't smack him in the face with the boob.
No, but, he got enough of it. And he was just so game. He was. But he treated all of our questions, no matter how silly, just with such, integrity. Like he was just like
real grace.
Yeah, he was like, this is a real interview because it is.
It is.
And
I'm very good at it too.
Yeah, hello. But my favorite thing, we just talked about him talking about Keanu with us, but I don't think I'm ever taking Keanu off my phone because it has sparked so many interesting conversations with the people that we've had in the studio. Yeah. And Charlie was
no exception.
So enthusiastic about Keanu.
He was.
Come on.
We had even more of a conversation once the mics were up. And I was like, Charlie, no, we should have said this in the booth. But he loves Keanu Reeves like a good number of straight men. He just loves Keanu Reeves. And I understand it because a good number of straight women and other men and dogs and chairs and table fans all fancy Keanu Reeves. So this is like just a wonderful thing. But the other thing about Charlie was that he spoke a little bit about Daredevil. He spoke a little bit about his childhood, his adulthood, his earlier roles, plans for the future. It's a really good interview. And I'm not just saying that because we conducted it. I'm saying that because it's true.
Yes, but you will hear all of that and more in our interview, which is coming up now.
Welcome to the show, Charlie Cox.
Thank you.
I'm going to say your first name and your surname every time.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Okay, that's
good.
That's
in my contract.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I like your earrings. Oh, I like both of your earrings.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, too late.
Well, no, because I
Nicole, mine are just more striking, all right?
Oh, well, that's better. Okay, thanks.
I'm so sorry. How are you today?
I'm doing great, yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Congratulations on the third season for Daredevil.
Thank you.
Are you feeling excited and happy?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's we did this kind of spin-off, The Defenders, so it's been like 2.5 years since the show came out. So it's been a long time coming. So
marvelous.
Yeah, how do you feel staying in character for so long, in this particular character for so long?
Well, yeah, good question. I don't stay in character the whole time. Yeah, it wasn't 2.5 years where I was just like walking around. Look, it's really it's a new challenge for me. I've not had that experience before. I prior to this, I'd done one other television show, but that only lasted 2 years for me. And so yeah, it's kind of fun in many ways, and the aspect of it that I find really enjoyable is trying to make sure season to season. I've now done essentially 4 seasons of this. So trying to find the consistencies within this character and who he is at his core, but also given the opportunity over these years to kind of include the experiences that have happened to him or that he's had that change him, and that's been a really fun challenge.
I think the key thing for many people is this idea of someone who has had an ability for so long and then it doesn't come to the fore until it needs to come to the fore. But then having to navigate the world with that is quite difficult. And all the challenges. I remember watching the first season, and I was obviously a fan of Daredevil because I was a comics person as a child. And then you were Daredevil, and I was like, oh, first of all, I'm going to watch this because obviously being British, that makes you my cousin, so I have to watch. But then also, the way it was formulated was like this incredibly dark but also very human thing, and so it's been it's been interesting to watch him evolve as this this dark heart of Hell's Kitchen, except deep down he just wants his daddy.
Yeah. It's just daddy issues, isn't it?
That's all of it, and it's just really sad. I'm like, oh, this poor boy, like, look at him, just trying, getting beat up and dying, but trying ever just so hard to find his father.
Wants a hug.
He just wants a hug. Oh my God, that's the new tagline. Daredevil, he just wants a hug.
Yeah,
that's it.
So speaking of Matt Murdock, one of the things that I love about his character is that he gets tired and he gets beat up and he is, in pain, and he shows that. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of showing a superhero who needs help and who has these vulnerable moments and who gets his ass kicked sometimes?
Yeah, and when I was kind of chatting with the producers over at Marvel at the start of this process, before I had the job, when I had a Skype with those guys, one of the things I remember my boss, the head of Marvel TV, Jeff Loeb, saying was, this is a world where, the start of episode 2, we find Matt Murdock in a dumpster and he's almost dead, and it will take the course of an entire hour episode for him to get off the couch. And that's something that we've done throughout. We did it a couple of times in season 1. In fact, there's a whole episode where he's recuperating in episode 10. And that was one of the things that sold it for me, was like, it was fascinating. I know we live in a time where there's such a massive appetite for superheroes and superhero, if there is such a thing, a genre, movies and stuff. But this felt like an opportunity to do something a little bit different, where you've got the time to really explore, as you say, those vulnerabilities, and what if we were to ask the question, what if these characters really did exist? For someone like Daredevil who doesn't have superpowers, what would that look like? What would that feel like? How would you do that? Physically, literally, how would you accomplish it? And of course, you have to. There's a little bit of suspension of disbelief because of superhero. Right. But it's fun to kind of find that a slightly kind of more grounded version of that.
Another thing that happens frequently in Daredevil are the hallway fight scenes, right?
Yes.
Those one-take shots. Can you talk about what do you guys talk about when you're trying to keep those fresh and make sure that the audience doesn't get bored?
It was never, I don't think it was planned to be a thing.
Don't
it's kind of
say
become
that.
a thing. No,
it's so good.
But what I mean is, they wrote that, Drew Goddard wrote that scene very specifically in season 1, at the end of episode 2. And I remember reading it, and it says everything now takes place in over one shot. right? And I was like, wow, that's a real thing, and it was a real challenge, and everyone was excited about it. And the stunt team went to work on it, and then we took a day to film it, and it was spectacular. It was amazing, but also it kind of caught the imagination of the fans, and it's been something that's been talked about a lot. So season 2, we kind of paid homage to it. We did this we had a fight scene that took place in a hallway. We didn't have the time to do a one-er again, but we did what's not. So we did what's called a kind of a fake one-er. So it plays in one shot. It looks like it's one shot, but it's actually morphed together, right in places that. So there's no edit points per se, but there's moments where the screen kind of goes black as it spins around, the camera spins around, and those are moments where you can stitch it together. So then that was talked about. And then in season 3, there was this kind of like, we got season 3 and there was like, now there's this like, there's this expectation that we're going to do a hallway fight.
I would have been very disappointed if there wasn't one.
So. And so then there was, then they found an opportunity for it. And I got this script. I remember getting this script and it says everything from this point forward takes place in one take. So I read that page, I read the next page, I read the next page. And then I'm like, the next page, I'm like, oh, the writer forgot to put in where the one ends. They just forgot to put it in. And I keep reading 4, 6 page, 7 page, 8, and then it goes, the one ends here. And I'm like, wait a sec, what? And I went back and read it. I was like, no, that's a mistake. There's no way we can do that.
And then,
but you did it.
That's the super and superhero.
Yeah, I have to say, it was unbelievable. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Yeah, the season 3 fight scene in the jail.
Yeah.
And, there's just a lot of different cinematography changes in season 3 that are stellar. They're so good. I find myself sitting on the edge of my seat watching it. So when you finally get a chance to have you looked at the show in its entirety
No,
yet?
I have not. No.
Oh.
Hey, Charlie, you should check that out. It's a show called Daredevil. It's on Netflix. It's really good.
No, the truth is, I like to wait until everything dies down, and I can, because at the moment, if I watch it when everyone's kind of reviewing it and talking about it, then I can't enjoy it as much. I'm looking at it and trying to think what I think of it. I want to just leave a couple of months go by and then.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
don't tell me what happens.
Okay, no, I
don't
won't
spoil it for me.
I heard that this amazing Warner, and
great.
that's all I've heard. So.
The Daredevil versus Daredevil in episode 6, when we first see
that. I have seen that.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is. That's great.
Yes.
That's great.
You're so happy. Yeah. I am. I was watching it in the middle of the night and I could not go to sleep because it was so thrilling. And also I love Wilson Bethel. So
he's great. And doesn't he do a great job?
Yes, absolutely.
You know what's really fun about that scene? One of the things that we try really hard to do, and it's not very easy, and a huge credit to the writers, is that obviously it's an action show. It's one of the things we try to do is make sure that there's never just action for action's sake. That there's always some sort of storyline, story plot behind it for it to make sense. So it's not just kind of gratuitous violence or anything like that. That is and I feel like they achieve that a tremendous amount. One of the scenes that is most apparent in is that Bullseye Daredevil fight, because it's the first time they come together, right? Because they've got such unique fighting styles and abilities, you can really tell a great story about how they come together physically. Right. Meaning, what very rapidly happens is Daredevil discovers that this guy is no match for him in kind of close combat.
Right.
He immediately takes control. Most fights, the good guy loses initially and then eventually ends up winning. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Initially, Daredevil just rules Bullseye. He's got no chance. But then there's a moment where fake Daredevil manages to create a bit of distance, and then because he's Bullseye, he can pick up all this stuff from the desks and these scissors and staplers or whatever it is, and with that distance, he's lethal. Right. And so then the whole story of the fight becomes about fake Daredevil trying to keep the distance so that he can, do the most damage he's capable of. Meanwhile, real Daredevil's trying to close the gap so that he can get him in close and tight and personal and then finish it that way. So
it all seems like a metaphor for Matt Murdock's depression and suicidal thoughts, right? Like if he can keep the bad part of him at a distance, he'll be okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, that was intentional.
Yeah.
Smooth. Well done.
Nice.
Yeah.
You've been running around doing this since you were a kid?
No. I tried not to fight, to make my dad proud, to block it out. The sirens, the pain, the fear, all strangling Hell's Kitchen. For years, I buried my head and turned away. Then, one night, right after we quit Lammin and Zach, I heard it.
Heard what?
Little girl, crying in her bed in a building down the block. Her father liked to go to her room late at night, when his wife was asleep.
Look, life is so hectic. You know, everyone is rushing to get to work, or if you're a part of the gig economy, you're rushing from freelance job to freelance job to freelance job. And sometimes you don't have time to get anything good and healthy to eat in a timely fashion. That's where Daily Harvest comes in. Daily Harvest delivers perfectly portioned cups of frozen organic fruits and vegetables directly to your door. All you have to do is add water or maybe like your favorite oat milk or something, and then just blend it or heat it up. Daily Harvest new savory harvest bowls are an amazing healthy dinner that's faster than ordering takeout on any day. I tried the chickpea and za'atar harvest bowl. It has a Middle Eastern mix of cumin, coriander, sesame seeds, sumac, thyme, and it's really savory. I thought it was going to be kind of like a more of an oatmeal kind of thing, but it was actually like it was a full dinner meal, and it was really good. And it's so simple. It's much, much quicker than trying to figure out what you're going to order on takeout. Go to daily-harvest.com and enter promo code THIRST to get 3 cups free in your first box. That's promo code THIRST for 3 free Daily Harvest cups at daily-harvest.com.
So I don't know if you know very much about Thursday, Kit, but essentially we kind of look at pop culture and we're looking at it very much with the idea of investigating things like fandom and desire and just general feelings of crushing, essentially. So we wanted to, I mean, yeah, Keanu, listen, he's already on board.
Right,
he gets
yeah,
it. Right, okay.
But listeners know that I'm looking at 2 laptops, both with Keanu Reeves stickers on them. Keanu Reeves on the telephone.
Yeah, on my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, Keanu Reeves in our hearts.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Keanu Reeves.
So we wanted to kind of ask. So we interviewed Chris Evans, who obviously is Captain America, equally in your Marvel world, and we were asking him about hanging up the shield finally, and he was saying how he was looking forward to not working out nearly as much because he was like, I want to have less bulk. I'm just like Captain America, and then once this is over, I get to kind of re-evaluate and be less. How has having to be this incredibly fit, fighty person, how has that changed how you think about yourself and your body and how it kind of moves and works? Has that been like a big thing for
wow,
you?
what a good question.
Thank you.
So it's no secret that when I got this job, I'd never had a gym membership. That was something that's talked about. Now, that doesn't mean that I sat on the couch all day and didn't do anything, but I'd never lifted weights or anything like that. I would do a little yoga and I would run and stuff, and I was very, very sporty, so I played any sport whenever I got a chance. But I wasn't but that kind of side of athleticism I hadn't ever explored, and I was excited to have that opportunity. So that journey from getting the job in 2014 to now has morphed and changed a lot. At first, I went to meet the trainer they set me up with. Lovely guy who I just did everything he's told me to do. Right? Drink this, eat this, pick that up 10 times, like run over there, come back, all that stuff. And initially I kind of put on a lot of weight and muscle. Like I put on like 25 pounds in a couple of months, which was kind of, I guess, was right for the character, initially at least. And then... But I didn't love it on me. I felt it felt like a little, I just felt on show a little bit. Like do you know what I mean? So what I've done since then for season 2 is that I think the nice thing about Daredevil is he's not superhuman. Like he doesn't have superhuman strength. Like if you play Superman, you got to, like Henry Cavill, you got to be big.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are super, super strong.
Super, right. Yeah.
DD's a fantastic gymnast. He's an incredible martial artist. He's quicker than anyone else, and he's got this radar sense. But he's not necessarily super strong. He works out, but he's not super strong. So I started to think of DD more as like a Bruce Lee type.
Right.
So I kind of leaned up a little bit and just and I changed the workouts I was doing. From doing a bit of research with my trainer to do stuff that incorporated much more kind of like cardiovascular workouts with the weightlifting and stuff.
Right.
And that I've really enjoyed. That I can't really don't quite know how to put into words, but it's like that makes me feel like my body is more integrated.
Right.
Rather than I'm isolating just biceps today, biceps, and then back, you know.
Right.
Now it kind of feels like it's kind of, and I every other day I'll do yoga.
So it's a more holistic approach.
I guess that's one word for it, and I don't know if it's, but it feels it feels better for my body.
Right.
You know?
Can I ask you something silly?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Why do you think it's so hard to allow male superheroes, to have chest hair?
I know.
Solid question.
Yeah, I remember Tristan and Owen Slater, and but now Matt Murdock
riddle us that, Matt Murdock.
Very smooth.
Yeah. Although I feel like I saw a movie recently.
Henry Cavill was hairy as Superman.
Yeah.
So he was the only one.
He was the only one.
And in the comics themselves, everyone's smooth.
The conversation I had with the guys was like I've kind of become a fan of this character. I wasn't beforehand, but now I read the comics and I'm like into it. You know, obviously he's come become close to my heart, this character. And so I kind of really enjoy any moment where we get to kind of pay homage to the characters, to the comics themselves. Like if there's a you know, we find these great Easter eggs, or we manage to recreate a frame in the film that is either identical to a comic book panel, or it's the reverse. Like we did something in season 3, which is the reverse of an iconic image with Daredevil and Karen Page, stuff like that. So I love all that. And the truth is, DD is, in the comics, he has no chest hair, so we did that. But you know, I think
if you have your druthers, would you just like to?
If I'd have my what?
Druthers, would you rather?
What is that word?
Druthers.
I don't know what that word is.
Maybe it's a Southern thing.
You American.
I don't know. It's an American.
Do you know what
No, both of us are like, huh?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
If you would rather, right? Okay. Anyway.
If I'd had my druthers.
Yes. If you had a choice.
How does it sound in a British accent? If I had my druthers.
If I had my druthers, I rather would have. Yeah.
Would you prefer to keep your chest hair and not deal? I'm presuming that you wax.
Well, no. Are you joking? Wax it? Oh, you said you remember Owen Slater. I have a hairy chest.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not waxing that. God, no.
So you shave?
Yeah.
Jesus.
What?
That's stressful. That's like, that would take you like 7 years.
And it grows back more quickly and thicker.
Than waxing it? Have you seen 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah, we have.
Okay. Yes.
God, no.
This is just like solid journalism we had to ask.
Yeah.
Because it just looks like it will just take forever.
Well, it's very smooth looking.
That's the other thing.
Great job on shaving.
It's a proper close shave.
Yeah.
Because that's why I assumed waxing. Because I'm like,
I did too.
No, I shave it. I have to trim it first and then shave it, and then with my druthers intact. I
see what you did.
I would probably, if we were starting again, I'd probably like take it down and because I couldn't just I remember when I was a kid. I did a play in London, and there was a photograph from the play outside the theatre, and I had a dressing gown on. What do you call it? Robe.
Yeah.
I had a robe on and boxer shorts, but my chest out. And my godson, who was like 10 at the time, he said to me, "Uncle Charlie, why are you wearing a sweater under your?" And so I'd have to take it down a little bit.
From the mouths of babes.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks, child.
Can we back up a little bit to talk about
Druthers?
Tristan?
Leave the druthers alone now.
Tristan and Stardust, and
Yes,
then
yes.
a little Owen Slater from Boardwalk Empire.
Yes. Tristan is my favorite character of yours. I read Stardust, I loved it, and then I watched it, and I was like, oh, perfectly done.
Oh, nice.
I'm a huge
Cool.
fan. Shout out to
that's
Jane
so cool.
Goldman. It was so good. So yes, tell us about that, because for me, what I really enjoyed about that
was that he was obviously this man who was very true to himself and so on, but there was still a very subtle makeover element, you know, when he gets on the ship with the captain and so on. And I loved seeing that because we rarely see men have makeovers. And I was very pleased to see it. And, you know, the reveal, like, I think when the camera kind of pans and his hair is different and he's got a little smile, I'm like, I know, I'm hot now. And it's like, I really liked that. I just thought it was nice to have a guy have a makeover scene in a movie. What do you think about, I mean, how did you enjoy making Stardust, and what was your experience of being this character? Like, you were, you know, essentially a lead in your big movie, not super, but super adjacent.
So the experience was phenomenal, as you can imagine. And like, I remember it now with like kind of huge nostalgia. I do also know that at the time I was shitting myself, you know, and feeling a lot of pressure. But nonetheless, it was such fun, and it was such a lovely bunch of people, and you know, to fence with Robert De Niro and, you know, see him put a dress on. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I remember, you know, turning up to set that day for that scene and being like, oh my God, this is amazing, and people are going to hate it. So great experience. It's funny that you bring up this because I kind of essentially almost play two characters in that film. Again, it's like maybe that's all I can do.
That's your niche
my thing.
now.
I remember feeling much more comfortable playing early Tristan.
Oh,
because I felt like I had some. It felt like when Tristan has had the makeover, that felt like suddenly, you know, he needed to be like smooth and cool and. Like, that doesn't fit as comfortably with me as playing kind of like slightly, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, nerdy character. I find that easier to act. I remember there were times as makeover Tristan that I was like, oh God, I feel really uncomfortable. I don't know how to do this. You know, but it was great. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
With Owen Slater, I loved Owen so much, and he was such a violent man.
She really does love Owen. I want you to know that. She sent me clips, and she was like, "Look at this, look at it."
I have Keanu on my phone, but I also have some videos from a particular scene in Boardwalk Empire on my phone with Owen and Margaret. And can you just, from your point of view, as the person playing him, did he want to leave with Margaret? Did he love Margaret? Just tell me that.
Oh my God!
Wow, what a question.
Because he was so almost Spockian with his approach, right? Just kind of like everything was logical to him. That it was always logical to lead to.
I think the answer is I think yes. I think that when Owen comes to Atlantic City and he sees the way people handle business, and in particularly the violence that they utilize in order to handle business, and the things that are important to these Americans, and the things that kind of cause them anxiety and grief, is so pathetic from what he's come from. So he's come from the War of Independence, where people, you're in Ireland and the fighting with the British, and it's not about money, and it's not about even territory necessarily. It's about pride, and it's about heritage, and it's about feeling independent, of the oppression of a nation that has control but isn't your own nation, all that kind of stuff. And so Owen's very pragmatic, his violence is always. There's one scene that you'll probably remember where you see him violent in a gratuitous fashion, more so than any other scene, and it's the only time you see that. And the reason it's the only time you see that is because it's a traitor. It's an Irish traitor that he's found. It's part of the reason he's there,
in the bathroom. Yeah,
and the reason he doesn't just shoot the guy is because he wants this guy to know it's happening to him. It's important. This is personal on a different level, and that's the one time you see him kind of relish in the violence of it all.
Owen.
But I don't think he wants that in his life. I think he's got to America to do that one job, but discovered this is amazing out here. I love this place. They need people like me, and I can make a killing out here. And he's very duplicitous as well. But I think ultimately Yeah, I don't think the stuff with Margaret is kind of a decoy, or he's trying to get, he's being duplicitous in that with her. I think he falls in love with her.
Okay.
I think he falls in love with a bit of home,
Yeah.
and she does that as well.
Yeah. I want to bring up something that you mentioned before about feeling more comfortable playing a pre-makeover Tristan. And I wanted to ask, something we ask all our guests. So we talk a lot about models of masculinity and how people learn what to fancy and who to fancy and so on. Were there anyone that you saw as a child growing up that you modeled yourself after, that you thought that's like a good idea for? Because most people obviously have dads, uncles, other male family figures, but was there anyone on screen in culture, in pop culture, that you thought, oh, that's a cool dude, I want to be like him?
I'm sure there were. My instinct was it would have been a sportsman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, rather than you wouldn't really call that pop culture, would you? But
it's popish. I guess I'm trying to figure out what did you watch and whose posters were on your walls when you were growing up? What girls were on your wall then?
Celeb.
I'm trying to remember. So I went to a boarding school, and
okay.
and we were, I shared studies and dorms with other guys, and we would buy FHM and Esquire. I'm trying to think what else. Maxim.
Sure.
I would also like so all my friends had them, but they're expensive.
Right.
Those magazines were expensive when you're at school. But my mum would get like Vogue and Tatler and stuff, and I discovered that if I took them, there was still like awesome pictures. Now they weren't quite the same as FHM, but they were like, because they were really advertising clothes and stuff. But there was some
less bikini shots.
Yeah. But Helena Christensen.
Oh yeah.
The original Claudia Schiffer was a big one.
Solid.
Jennifer Aniston. I was a huge Friends fan.
Right.
To answer your previous question, probably Ross. Like, you know what I mean? Ross and Chandler.
Ross and Chandler.
Were kind of my hero. My that's
your comedy heroes. Yeah.
That's how I've based my adulthood.
That's why you're so comfortable playing awkward men.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I want to go back to Daredevil very quickly before we're out of time. But so Matt has his little, I like to call it his bootleg Daredevil costume with the all black and the black scarf that he wears across his face. And you said earlier that you didn't really like to be kind of showy with your training or whatever. But there are some parts of Daredevil where you are clearly, being, putting on a show for the audience and letting us see, Matt's.
To clarify, I don't think it's wrong for Matt to feel that way.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm just saying when I go home at night and I'm on and during the weekend, like I remember going to in season 1. I remember my wife and I went to the beach with some friends, and I felt a little like taking my shirt off. I felt uncomfortable.
Yes,
a little bit.
Yes,
but that's me. That's not. But
right.
Matt doesn't feel that way.
Matt doesn't feel that way, and the audience appreciates that. So that all black costume, the all black ensemble, does a lot for the audience.
It does. That's two members of the audience here, and I'm here to confirm that. Yeah, it's pretty solid.
So when you're in these moments where you're like, okay, I know that I have to be shirtless and I got to flex a little bit for the audience, does that make you feel a little self-conscious?
As long as it makes sense in the story, I don't mind. There's a couple of times where it's been written in, and I've said I don't feel that's necessary. I feel like that's in the same way that if there's an action sequence that has moments or in its entirety is there for the sake of action, which almost never happens, by the way. But in the same way, I'll flag that. I will flag. I remember there was one scene in season 2 where. With Rosario Dawson, with Claire Temple,
Claire.
And it was like
it
said something about it said something like Matt takes his shirt off and I was like why no, he's not doing that. You don't need to.
I mean, no one would have complained.
Yeah, we would not have complained.
As long as it makes sense for the
fair enough.
Yeah.
Like the scenes with Elektra in season 2 were like it was important to show how comfortable they were around each other in that way.
Yeah.
Like you could have, because we were playing that off the relationship with Elektra versus the relationship with Karen, which should both of them should feel very organic and natural, but completely different dynamics. And with Karen, just fully clothed, the touch on the shoulder, it feels electric and anything, and how exciting that is. With Elektra, similarly, you can both be almost completely naked on the couch and laughing and chatting, and that feels that explains that relationship a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us anything about what's next for you?
Mm-hmm.
I had a film that came out in the UK called King of Thieves. It just came out with about the Hatton Garden. I'm looking at you because you won't know.
The jewelry heist.
The jewelry heist.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
with Michael Caine and Ray Winston
I'm
and
so homesick.
and Jim Broadbent. So really, so these are all my heroes.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was one of the another of the great experiences of my life. I mean, it was one of those things where I got a call, and they'd obviously been out to Tom Hardy and all the big British stars.
That's modest.
And well, no, it's true.
Oh, okay.
because I don't know exactly who they were out to, but what I do know is I got a call from James Marsh, who's a dear friend of mine who I'd worked with before on Theory of Everything, and he called me and he said, "Look, you believe me or not, but I promise you, I always wanted you for this, but they wanted a much bigger star. But now we're kind of up shit's creek." And he was like,
and you're like, "I'll do it."
And I was like, "Sure." It was the beginning of the summer last year, and I was like, "Yeah, when do you need me?" Thinking, was it January? November? Let me check my schedule. He's like, "I need you Monday." So I got it was amazing. So I got on a plane. I had the best experience with icons of British acting who I've grown up with. And I think I just read that they're going to bring that out in the US now.
Oh, marvelous!
So that was fantastic. So but other than that, I'm just kicking around.
Okay. So you've mentioned feeling a little bit uncomfortable with self-conscious and so on, but I have to ask, because we have to ask all of our people, when did you realize that actually I do have the face of a leading man? Actually, I am a hot piece and I want to be on TV. When did you ever think that?
Can I be really honest? I don't feel that. Honestly, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying. Look, I'm not going to lie. I recognize that I'm capable of playing leading men,
right.
And I feel like I feel very lucky to have that opportunity, and it's great to play leading characters in films is fantastic because you get to be kind of more everyman, and you get to have the emotional journey. You get to change. You go from boy to man, or you have the moment where you realize the errors of your ways and you can reform and change, and that from an acting point of view is really fun. You don't often get to play larger-than-life characters as often. That's why Daredevil is great for me, because it kind of is both, you know what I mean? But, look, I think everyone deals with levels of self-consciousness and inadequacies and all those kind of things. Maybe there are people who don't. I'm certainly not one of them. So, I was watching. I haven't seen the season yet, because again, it's not fun. It's like listening to yourself on a
podcast, yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
No. I was going to say on a when you hear your voice on
answering machine,
yeah.
Voicemail.
That dates us, by the way.
That's
Everyone here is a little bit older.
Yeah. When you had to press the tape, the two buttons on the tape, and leave your voice, answering machine message. So when it's uncomfortable hearing your own voice, and you're like, please say I don't actually sound like that. Similarly, when you watch yourself, I find it the same thing. It was like, please, I really look like that. Yeah. But I was watching a scene from Daredevil the other day, and I was like, wow, how am I still playing a leading man?
Which do you think is more important for an actor's career, being the romantic lead or the action hero, in order to advance your career?
I'm not sure that plays into it. I think it depends on what the next choices are. There's so much luck involved. There's so much luck, and not just in terms of like how well the projects are when they come out, but also the choices that you make with your team. There's absolutely no formula. One of the things that ended up being amazingly lucky, but at the time felt like was disaster, was, Stardust didn't perform particularly well, didn't actually make a lot of money in the US. And when it came out, I wasn't being called like I was told I was going to be. The phone wasn't ringing off the hook, and I wasn't working at all. And similarly, the jobs that I had done up until that point weren't coming my way anymore, because I think people thought, oh, he's not going to do that. He just played a lead with Robert De Niro. Do you know what I mean? So I was in this weird space, and before you knew it, a year had passed and I hadn't worked. And by the time Boardwalk Empire came around, I did a couple of things here and there, but by the time Boardwalk Empire came around, that was kind of like a starting from scratch, And what was lucky about that was that character kind of renewed interest in me in the industry, but also kind of shone a light on a capability of mine that I was able to play the much darker character, and I was older now, and that was ultimately what got me Daredevil. So, you know, a lot of luck. My friend from Bulwer Kemper, Shea Wiggin, amazing actor, says hungry and humble. If you remain hungry and humble, and you work hard, and you're always on time, and that kind of stuff, then the opportunities will come your way.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, personally, I would rather 700 romantic comedies, but that's up to you, I guess. If I had my druthers, I would.
See, that's exactly how you use it.
What are your favorite romantic comedies then?
Okay, so one of them is The Truth About Cats and Dogs.
Okay,
which stars Janine Garofalo, and Ben Chaplin and Uma Thurman. It's one of my faves.
Yeah.
So, you know, if anyone wants to do a remake, I hear Charlie Cox is free.
I just remember something. As you said that, I just remember something. When I was growing up, there was a video store opened up around the corner from me in London. Right?
Video store. Yet
Video
again,
store,
aging
where you
ourselves.
go, the kind of place where you go and you rent a video.
Yeah.
And if you forget to return it, you get a bill for 50 quid 4 months later, which happened numerous times.
I used to work at Blockbuster. I know.
Right. And there was that movie. I don't even know who's in it now, but I was obsessed with this movie as a child, like a 10-year-old, because it was like really fun but also romantic. And it was, I think they called it was called Can't Buy Me Love.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
Love can buy you. Money can buy you popularity, but it can't buy you love. Is that it? Is that what I said?
With the guy from Grey's Anatomy.
What's his name?
Patrick Dempsey?
Yeah, Patrick Dempsey's in it. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
It's a good film.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, because he was very young. He had a head full of curly hair. Was he a pizza boy? A delivery boy?
Oh, my God.
No, but he's obsessed. He's trying to buy a telescope. He's saved up for a telescope, but then for some reason he has to pay the lead actress, whoever she was, but she was great, to be he pays her to be his girlfriend.
Yes, she was blonde and had curly, like, kind of permed hair.
Why does he do that? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
And then he gets in with all the cool kids.
Yes.
And he's popular.
Yes.
But
it was a remake with Nick Cannon. Like,
okay, that's enough.
So
I think they literally ride off into the sunset on a lawnmower.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it ends. I remember. Yes.
What a bonding moment. Okay, well, that's perfect. What a great time to end it.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
fantastic.
I can't believe we didn't talk about Keanu.
I mean,
I was like,
No, let's talk about it.
Point Break.
Point Break.
Yes. Matrix.
Yes.
Oh, my God, yeah.
There are some parts that only he could play.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
No one else could do Neo.
Charlie, you get it. You get
Yes.
it.
I love Keanu.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
And we love
Keanu
you
too.
for loving
And we love
Keanu.
you. Exactly. There's been some transference happening right now. So please. That's
Thank
great.
you so much for joining us.
Really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. God bless you.
And God bless you, Charlie Cox. Oh, my God.
Wow. I literally, at one point, it was all I could do. I had to sit on my hands. So I wanted to reach across and just hold his hand and just say, do you know what you mean by being here? Like, do you know what, like, Nicole is beside herself and I myself am quite undone. He's such a nice man. I think that's the only way to put it down. Like, yes, obviously he's very attractive in person, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's just so nice. Like, it's very disarming. I was like he walked with us to the studio like it was casually through the BuzzFeed office, real chill.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're a nice man.
And he took that picture with us and he held, okay, some stars are adverse to touching the people, and rightly so, right? You never know. You got to respect people's boundaries and stuff.
Your body is a wonderland.
Right. But he put his hand on our shoulders, just like in a very nice, sweet way, but fully.
Yeah.
Just fully all 5 fingers on our shoulders.
Yeah. Just solid. I was here for it. I just thought, thanks, Charlie. Like, we are clearly here to do a job.
Right.
You're here to do a job. But we're going to take a nice photo where we don't look as though we all hate each other's guts. Like, isn't that lovely? We had a good time. You left us with a God bless you. Photo time. I thought, wow, what a nice man. And then we spoke about the L train. And then we walked to the lift. And I was just like, you know what? It turns out Charlie Cox is very normal.
Yeah.
And that feels like a real win in 2018.
Yeah. And the thing that came across the most to me in the interview was just how he's still very humble and still just like aware. He seems to be aware that anything can change, at the drop of a dime.
Listen.
And so he's just very grateful and very thoughtful about the process and what he needs to do in order to keep moving forward. And I respect that a lot.
I respect it. I respect it so much. I respect also his wife and child because if they didn't exist, I could have done something unprofessional. But they do. So God love them. God love the Coxes. No, all jokes aside, I thought he was very indulgent of our questions about his earlier career. Like, he's in Daredevil mode.
Right.
And we were like, anyway, tell us about X. Tell us about this thing you played 5 years ago. And he was like, okay, which is very generous.
But also, I think that let him know that we know what we're talking about. And it's not just... Yeah. We have to recognize that he is more than Daredevil.
Yes, he is. And you know what? You're right. It did let him know who we were because real bitches do real things. And I feel like asking him about very specific, like we've been on your career, Mr. Cox.
Yeah.
So trust us. You're in good hands. Like we're here to question you about the art, the craft, but also the thirst.
Like Daredevil was fine, but talk to me about Owen. Chopping off people's fingers in a bathroom.
Stop closing your eyes and just I can see you going away on like I can see you. You're on a boat right now, just drifting.
Yes, but it was such a great interview. Thank you, Charlie Cox, so much for that. It was incredible, and I will never forget it.
No, and neither will I. And luckily, there's video, bitch, so we don't have to forget. I will watch that shit every day.
Now, this is normally the time of day where we would do, fanfic wars.
Yes.
We'd read some drabbles, thirst buckets go out and vote the next day on Twitter. But because of the interview with Charlie, maybe we don't do another set of drabbles about him.
It's also very weird to do a drabble when you've met the person.
Yes.
Can I just say?
Yes.
I spoke to this man about his wife. And now I'm kind of and then Charlie reached, no.
Right. And for me, I just don't think I can top my drabble from the Great British Bake Off.
I can stand here right now and tell you can't top that drabble because that was A+, class 1. I mean, truly top of the heap.
Good work. Thank you. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna take some. As Bim has said, we're gonna take a little scoop from our thirst bucket fan mail.
Just douse ourselves
and read some things from our Tumblr asks.
Yes.
Right. So the first thing I'm going to read is from Natasha, and she says, "I live in Copenhagen, and I occasionally see Mads Mikkelsen around town, and I will tell you, he is even more devastating in the flesh.
What?
I am generally quite unflappable, but I get fate when he is around. He is like a goddamn panther." Natasha, tell me more. Just my DMs are open on Twitter at TN Whiskey with an E woman. Tell me everything.
Oh my
okay.
God.
I don't want you to be creepy and take any creep shots of him. Don't take any pictures.
We have a line.
Yeah. Don't violate his privacy, but just tell me everything.
She wants to know more about the panther-like grace.
I believe it. I trust you.
This is not church. Why are you talking like it's a testimony? I receive it. I believe it.
Oh my gosh. Just I need to know more. Because Mass is everything to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
He is so sexy. I just
Oh my God.
My eyes are closed while I picture him.
I can see. I'm mad uncomfortable right now.
Yes, I love him, and
so does Natasha, who gets faint in caps.
Yes,
she put faint in caps,
all caps. Yeah, so if I need to go to Copenhagen to find him, just for a quick little glance, he could be like scruffy coming from getting his coffee or whatever.
So
the
glad
fuck.
you said coffee.
I don't care. I just want to see him. I feel like my life will be 1,000 times better.
I think it would be enriched.
Yeah.
He's like fluoride in your toothpaste.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Make me sparkle.
All right, that's enough out of you. I'm going to read another scoop from our bucket of thirst. Also on Tumblr, because Tumblr is a rich, devastating place, and there is nothing but thirst and puppies and cats out here. So this is from someone whose username, which I love, is that one weird black girl. Love you. She says, so I just took the BuzzFeed quiz. Who is your Hollywood weirdo soulmate? Your girl got Keanu. She's so proud of herself. Also, I wanted to thank you for helping me thirst in ways I never even dreamed. That one weird black girl, we salute you. We appreciate you doing the full 360 brand immersion. You listened to First Aid Kit and then you took a BuzzFeed quiz and then you tumbled us to tell us about taking it. I appreciate it. You've dipped yourself in the lake, BuzzFeed, in every way, and you've come out parched, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for loving Keanu. We love Keanu. Charlie Cox loves Keanu.
Yes.
And it's just like, it feels like that's like the only good thing in the world right now is how much we all love and appreciate Keanu Reeves.
I mean, let him connect us all. He can build the bridge to harmony and peace.
He really can. He is the immortal Keanu Reeves. He can do anything. God love him. God love you. Thank you so much for sending in your messages. We are on Tumblr, of course, at firstaidkitpodcast.tumblr.com, and the asks are full and they stay full, and we are trying our best to answer them as fast as we can. But you guys just love to type. So we'll get to them. I promise. I'm so sorry they're late, but that's our little dip in the bucket of thirst. First Aid Kit is produced by us, Bim Adewunmi and Nicole Perkins, TK Dutez, Camila Salazar, and Julia Furlan. Our music is by Tanya Morgan.
You can follow the show on Twitter at Thirst Aid Kit, and we're at Tennessee Whiskey Woman. That's TN Whiskey with an E, Woman, and Bimadew, BIMADEW. Plus, we're on Tumblr at thirstaidkitpodcast.tumblr.com. You can ask us questions there. I promise we'll get to them at some point. Maybe. I don't know.
Perhaps. Please head over to Apple Podcasts to leave a review and rate the show. It helps other people discover First Aid Kit because, believe it or not, there are people who don't know who we are. And I mean, listen, while you're there, you might give us 5 stars because we love 5 stars.
And if you live tweet your listen, please use the hashtag TAKPOD. That's TAKPOD. And you can send us emails of love and affection, thirsty epiphanies, whatever your heart desires, to thirstaidkit@buzzfeed.com. Thank you so much for listening. Stay thirsty.
Lovely. I love it. I love a bit of it. It's lovely.